after having reached maturity, both in age and in chess, Tal used to say that, well, he could teach 1 or 2 lessons to that Tal from 15 years, 15, 20 years ago. And I happened to be present when Tal played his penultimate tournament in Sevilla, 1992. Actually, I spent a lot of time with him. I was very fortunate in that tournament. And I remember a specific game which he won in a brilliant way. But he was very disappointed with the fact that he had spoiled a good strategical game by playing for tactics, which worked out well. He killed his less experienced opponent, but was not the thing to do. We see Tal playing a very solid opening, not something he would think of playing in his youth. Slav, semi-Slav, h6. Okay, in those days, bishop h4 was not really popular. The theory considered that it just loses a pawn. Now we know it's not like this, so almost everybody took on f6. Queen b3, an ambitious move, but which exposes the queen to some attacks. a4. Now, if knight takes a4, d takes e4, and because of the fork on b5, black retrieves the pawn. White cannot take on c4. Queen a2, knight d7, e4. We can see that white plays very energetical. We can almost suspect that it is Tal who is playing with white. White is well developed. Okay, his queen is somehow strangely placed. But now, after e5, we start to understand that black has his trumps. Black has good chances of a good control on dark squares. He's fighting for the c5 square right now for his knight, a very strategic approach. And at the same time, e5 is a move that seems to provoke white to attack. But Tal, who in his youth would have thought that, well, white should find something here, now he was confident that black's strategic resources are good enough to avoid any immediate problems and to offer him an advantage in the long term. e5, castle, he takes d4. Of course, Tal would not think of playing f5 followed by e4 with a fork. White's developing advantage would be too much. I mean, that's objectively not good. So he kept playing his strategic game. White, in the meanwhile, is kind of attacking. He even manages to prevent the black king from castling. But little by little, all his attacking pieces are vanishing. And okay, black has managed to bring his king into safety. Well, his coordination is not optimal. White controls on a pawn file. Black's rooks are passive for the time being, but it's not important. There is no initiative along the e file, especially with the queen on a2. What is really important is that the knight will soon land on c5. That's the important thing. Knight d7, a very strong move. And Tal had been playing for this maneuver since the moment he played e5. Actually, now it's interesting that bishop g4. Once again, we see that there is some connection between strategy and tactics. Bishop g4 does not prevent knight c5 because here the bishop would be trapped. We can really see here how strong the knight is. I mean, the bishop perishes just because there is a white pawn on c4. So after knight e7, placing the knight on c5 is not possible to avoid. Queen b1. Okay, white tries to get some regrouping. but now it is very obvious that black is doing the play. Let's say h5, just a small trick, because if bishop takes here, then queen e5 threatens mate and attacks the bishop. h5, g3, h4, bishop f1. White has to wait passively. His bishop is not doing anything. It has no favorable diagonals. The c6, b7 pawns are just creating a barrier in front of him. The c4 pawn is his worst enemy, and the knight is dominating. The b2 pawn is weak, so the queen has to defend it. The only problem is that black has no immediate threats yet, and probably, as Tal was complaining after the game, he should have just played g6, king g7, maybe rook h8, little by little, to force white make some concessions, such as g4 maybe, or I don't know, other kind of things, but not committing his own position in any way. But Tal's bad luck, let's say, was that by this moment Mario Gomez was already in some sort of time trouble, and old Tal, who looked quite really much older than he really was in the last period of his life, somehow got inspired, and the young Tal somehow entered the scene, and the young Tal wanted something to happen, something very nice, and he went queen f3. Queen f3 with the idea that if bishop g2, then rook e2. Okay, this is clear. The second rank is weak. The b2 pawn will be lost. Black wins. Rook d4. Rook d4. Of course, Tal expecting this move. In principle, white wants to force an exchange on g3 to get rid of some problems. The rook could get on f4. But then the problem is that the back rank is slightly weak. And then this inspired Tal to bring his knight into the attack. But there is a problem. The knight was fantastically well played on c5. I mean, that is a square that you don't have to abandon unless you win something, let's say the queen, or you deliver mate. But no, Tal had seen some trick, and he abandons the c5 square just for a trick which worked, but shouldn't have. So bishop g2, and now knight g5. Well, of course, it's nice to play such a move, because, if bishop f3, then we have this nice mate. Black is a queen down, and he mates, yes. But there is a problem here. h3 is a threat. It seems that there are problems with white, but actually there is a calm move, king f1. King f1, which suddenly threatens to take on f3. It defends the e2 square against the intrusion with rook e2. And with his queen attacked, black actually loses the h4 pawn. I suspect that this position, where black can always bring his knight back to c5, should eventually end in a draw, because black's position advantage should compensate for the lost pawn. But okay, black will not win this game for sure. Okay, what white did in time trouble was rook h4, but then he got this into this ending, which of course is already very bad for white. His kingside pawn, queenside pawn are very weak. He tried to get some counterattack, but this was threatening bishop takes c6. But okay, now the king is very close to the queenside, so the game lasted for just a few more moves. Knight e4, bishop takes a4, time trouble move. Knight c3, the bishop is cannot move, and knight e4, and now white lost on time. His position is very bad anyway. He will lose the f2 pawn to be equal pawns, but with his bishop so badly placed and his queenside pawns weak, he could not save the game. So I remember that evening we were reading together with Tal and the tournament organizer in San Marischeria, and Tal could not. Everybody was congratulating him for this nice moment. Knight g5. Whoa, what a move! The previous Tal is back. And Tal was the saddest and most dissatisfied person in the restaurant, thinking, how could I take the knight away from c5? I mean, how can I play like this? To make an unsound combination and give up the strategic advantage. So we see that the age had made Tal more wiser, more clever, wiser, but he could not always contain his enthusiasm as an attacking player. So actually, maybe this is why we love him so much.